Before I bought my house, I didn't bother to talk to the neighbors to see what kind of people I'd be living around. I wasn't getting a loan, so I could only buy what I could afford to actually pay for. I was just happy to be getting a house in what I knew to be a decent neighborhood, and I didn't pay any attention to the gray and blue house right behind the one I was buying. I bought my house and moved in March of 2014, and just 3 days later, at about 7 o'clock in the morning, I sat down with a cup of coffee just in time to see someone walk quickly past my window with a rifle. Now, I thought there's no reason why anyone should be in my yard at this time, so I went outside to find out what was going on. If you've ever experienced a neighbor feud, you know it's best to try to get along with your neighbors if you can, and I was new to the area, so the last thing I wanted was some crazy neighbor making my life miserable. When I saw David Schwendenman, who lived in the gray and blue house, standing in my backyard with a rifle, I asked him what he was doing. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, but he was obviously drunk. He told me that he had been chasing an armadillo that had run into my yard. He said something about them digging holes in his yard, and I suggested that he use poison rather than a gun to get rid of them. After a short conversation, he staggered away.
Tear your yard up.
Yeah, why don't you get some of those fucking things at Home Depot that you just throw down there? They eat them and die.
I didn't know they had some of those.
But that wasn't the last time my neighbor, David Schwendenman, would prove to be an annoyance. Schwendenman lived in the gray and blue house with his wife, Angela, and a man who rented a room. He and the renter didn't work. They spent most nights drinking in their backyard and walking around the neighborhood doing God knows what. Angela went to work every day. I never talked to her, but I noticed that she left every morning wearing scrubs, and she was usually home before I got home from work. David Schwendenman was well known in the neighborhood. He had conflicts with people on a regular basis. One notable incident took place in September, about 6 months after I moved in, when he was arrested at his house for aggravated assault, improper exhibition of a firearm, and the use of a firearm while under the influence of alcohol when he pulled an Ithaca shotgun on a woman who refused to drive him to a liquor store, saying that he was already drunk and she didn't want to help him get more booze. At the jail, Schwendenman threatened to kill the arresting police officer. The arrest, in my view, was a perfect opportunity for the criminal justice system to do what it does best and relocate Mr. Schwendenman to a place where property values are of little concern and being a good neighbor takes on an entirely different meaning. But they decided not to prosecute him. It's anyone's guess why that decision was made, but it meant he was still allowed to own guns and get drunk and live in the gray and blue house behind me. But there were other factors at work in the lives of David and Angela Schwendenman. It turns out that they were the beneficiaries of a government program that gives money to people for the purchase of a home. David Schwendenman got a grant to offset the cost of the gray and blue house, but he hadn't been paying the mortgage. So the state contributed an additional $40,000 from a program called Florida's Hardest Hit Financial Program. This little-known socialist program pays a maximum of $40,000 to the mortgage holder in order to keep people from falling into foreclosure. But despite all this free taxpayer money, David Schwendenman was still not paying his primary mortgage. Finally, in 2016, the gray and blue house went into foreclosure in spite of the best efforts of our wise and fair state government. David and Angela and the room rent guy all moved to a rental house in a different neighborhood. As you might imagine, I was pretty happy about that. The crazy guys were gone and the gray and blue house was empty. I was out of the country for much of 2016, and when I returned, someone told me that my former neighbor was in jail. David Schwendenman had murdered his wife Angela with an Ithaca shotgun, just as he had threatened to do to the woman who wouldn't drive him to the liquor store. Police shot him, but didn't kill him. Another missed opportunity that can be laid at the feet of government, in my opinion.
On Friday, deputies say Schwendenman shot and killed his wife Angela at a home in the Larkey Lakes neighborhood. Records show the suspect has been arrested before on aggravated assault charges with a deadly weapon. Schwendenman remains in stable condition at Lawnwood Regional Medical Center. The sheriff says the two officers involved in the shooting will be interviewed in the next 72 hours. He expects them to be cleared and back on the job this week. We're in Okeechobee County. Gabrielle Saran, WPTV News Channel 5.
As for the gray and blue house, some new people got a $25,000 grant from the state government to buy it. They moved in with their dog who never stops barking and howling, and they put the dog's cage in their backyard and keep him in there 24 hours a day. But of course they put the cage as far away from their bedroom window as they possibly could, which is just a few feet from my bedroom window. But as far as I can tell, the dog is sober and unarmed.